For decades now, no reporter has been better at asking tough questions and getting candid answers than the legendary Seymour Hersh. This morning, our David Martin turns the tables during a visit to Hersh's Washington office.
These are my fancy interviews. You tell me you could translate one page from one thing. Here.
Welcome to Seymour Hersh's office. Buried in these files are some of the greatest scoops of all time.
So you see where people get the impression that you're a mad scientist, right?
No, this makes sense.
Journalism awards, including the Pulitzer, line the walls and spill onto the floor.
I won 5 pokes, more than anybody, I will say that.
He is, as the title of his memoir says, a reporter. Or, as the opening line puts it, a survivor from the golden age of journalism.
What's the golden age?
Oh my God. This would be the Watergate era.
During the past year, the wildest accusations have been given banner headlines and ready credence as well.
We all felt that we were the truth tellers. Our stories were much more credible than anything the White House would say, any denial they made. There was never anything like it.
What would you call today's age?
The age of very dumb cable news, dominating everything.
So you call yourself old school?
Oh my God, ancient school.
The son of immigrants who barely spoke English, Hersh grew up poor on the south side of Chicago and bounced around in the news business until 1969.
I'm still freelancing. Can't get a job.
When someone gave him a tip that changed his life.
He said an enlisted man went crazy and killed 75 people.
That put Hersh on the trail of the My Lai massacre, perhaps the single biggest expose of the Vietnam War. The enlisted man turned out to be an officer, Lieutenant William Calley. His attorney, George Latimer, wouldn't say where Calley was, but Hersh tracked him down at Fort Benning, Georgia.
And I said, "Hi, my name is Hersh." And he says, "Oh yeah, my lawyer told me you'd find me." So we sit down, and he tells me his story.
So how many newspapers ended up running that story?
About 35 papers. Everybody put it on page 1.
Then Hersh set up an interview between one of Calley's soldiers, Paul Meadlow, and Mike Wallace of CBS News.
Well, I might have killed about 10 or 15 of them.
Mm-hmm. Men, women, and children.
Men, women, and children.
And babies.
And babies.
Now, the New York Times, which had not run Hersh's original My Lai story, also wanted to interview Meadlow. But Hersh paid them back by hanging up the phone on managing editor Abe Rosenthal.
And so 2 minutes later, he calls back, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "Yes, sir," and I hung up again.
Yet 3 years later, Rosenthal hired Hersh. He might be obnoxious, but as the Times Washington bureau chief put it, when you consider what he has done on My Lai and other stories without any organizational backing, you can appreciate his zeal and skill. Hersh turned his manic intensity to the biggest story of them all, Watergate. And even Richard Nixon, as recorded on the White House tapes, was impressed.
God damn it, this story in the Times and the one by Hersh, he doesn't usually go with stuff that's wrong. I mean, the son of a bitch is a son of a bitch, but he's usually right, isn't he?
One of his jaw-dropping scoops came from a senior FBI official named William Sullivan.
He invited me to lunch, and when he got up to leave, he said, "Stay around after, finish your coffee." He said, "I left something on my chair," like in the movies. And I drank my coffee, and I got up, and I picked it up. 17 wiretaps, 15 of them signed by Kissinger. It was where the wiretaps were placed and who were the technicians who did it.
Henry Kissinger, then Nixon's national security advisor, had asked the FBI to wiretap some of his closest aides to find out who was leaking. But that was not the biggest story Hersh was working on.
There was a big, huge, horrible story on the inside about domestic spying.
The revelation that the CIA had violated its charter against spying inside the U.S. and kept dossiers on 10,000 anti-war activists was a scandal second only to Watergate. Hersh confirmed that story with none other than the director of the agency, William Colby.
You get the director of the CIA
to say to me, "It's not as bad as it seems."
He's saying it's not as bad, and you're saying, bingo, I've got confirmation.
A now declassified CIA history contains a transcript of Colby talking about Hersh with Deputy Attorney General Lawrence Silberman. Silberman, the SOB has sources that are absolutely beyond comparison. Colby, he knows more about this place than I do. After a 7-year run of blockbusters unlike any in the history of American journalism, Hersh quit the New York Times.
I was going to burn out. I just knew it. Also, I'm being held to that high standard. You know, you got to be great.
What's wrong with being held to a high standard?
It's, when you ask me, it's scary.
He went to work for The New Yorker, where he continued to turn out major exposés, most notably the Abu Ghraib prison scandal. But in journalism, you're only as good as your next story. So you know what the talk has become now.
Oh, he's lost his fastball and stuff like that.
Have you lost your fastball?
I don't think I ever had a real fastball.
Oh, come on.
Hell
You
no.
threw heat.
I threw heat. I'm still throwing heat.
In 2014, he threw what can only be called a wild pitch with this story in the London Review of Books. After the bin Laden story,
Hell broke out.
the talk changed from Hersh has lost his fastball to Hersh has lost it, period. Hersh wrote that everything President Obama and his national security aides had told the nation about the bin Laden raid was a lie. The SEALs had not pulled off a daring night raid. Instead, Hersh wrote, the Pakistanis had been holding bin Laden prisoner and invited the SEALs in to stage a mock raid, a secret deal cut by then CIA Director Leon Panetta. I talked to Leon Panetta.
Panetta's the one that should have told the truth. He didn't.
He says, it's all fantasy. I don't know where the hell he got that. There's just not a shred of evidence to support that. It's the opposite. The Pakistanis never gave us any help. So is he just lying to me?
I have a completely different story from completely different sources.
For the record, you stand by.
Oh my God. I stand by all those stories. This is stuff I haven't written yet.
Somewhere in this warren of files, which he keeps only on paper so the government can't hack into his computer, lies Hersh's next blockbuster. How old are you?
81.
So why do you keep doing it?
It makes your blood a little redder. Come on, it's there. There's something about a good story.